Hello, how are you? If you're good, great, happy. If not, I'm glad you're here. Have you ever dealt with a 3-year-old before? I imagine a lot of you are parents and you have had a 3-year-old at one point or another. And I can imagine that you're immediately knowing what I'm going to be talking about today. And that is the futility of negotiating with a 3-year-old. You just don't do it. Um, 3 years old is basically old enough for that tiny human to begin pushing limits as to how far they can go with freedoms. They're learning boundaries. They have a pretty good, I'm not going to say mastery, but they have a pretty good usage of language. They know enough to be able to communicate. Now, they don't understand emotions yet, so when they're angry or upset or scared, they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to use words. So a lot of times they'll strike out with their fists or their hands. They'll hit, maybe they'll bite when they're not getting their way. It's a frustration that they don't know how to deal with. And as parents or as people who are somehow in charge of them, to negotiate that minefield of a 3-year-old is a very, very difficult and frustrating time for anyone. I can understand why parents might smack their kids or spank them. It becomes so overwhelming that you don't know what else to do. And maybe that fear and pain response is something that might work. A lot of people who have children had animals or have animals, and that's a pretty effective way to train a dog is through positive and negative reinforcement. Now, I know the new age thinking is no, it's all positive reinforcement, and you never, you're not supposed to strike an animal or a child or any of that, child abuse, and I get that. I understand that argument. On paper, it sounds fantastic. Nobody wants to hurt a child or an animal. I truly believe that. I truly believe that outside of a few very, very damaged people, they don't want to hurt smaller people or animals. I can also see that side of things where you've tried all the gentle parenting, you've tried all the timeouts, you've tried the deprivation of toys and video, and you've tried everything you can, but at the end of the day, you just cannot negotiate with a 3-year-old. They want what they want, and if they don't get it immediately, they'll get louder. And if that doesn't work, they'll act out. Maybe they'll stomp their feet or throw their toys or bite. And if that doesn't work, then they'll go into a full-blown mental breakdown tantrum. Doesn't matter where they are, they don't care. But now as the parent, as the bigger person, now you have to deal with that. And I can imagine the frustration of that as well. Your child's having a meltdown, and it's something that you've witnessed 50 times this week. And you're just trying to get through the day. You're trying to get groceries so that you can go back home and make dinner. And your child's having a meltdown in the middle of the aisle of Target. What can you do? In fact, it's even more interesting how 3-year-olds don't really understand how anything works yet. So let's say, for instance, you have two children. One is 5 years old, 6 years old, and one is 3 years old. The 6-year-old is having a birthday, and you've decorated the house, you've bought gifts. People are over to have this little birthday party with the cake. The 3-year-old doesn't truly understand that this day, this celebration, all the colors, the balloons, the the cake, the candles, the presents. It's not about them, but they don't understand that. When I was growing up, a sibling and I are 1 year apart. They're 1 year younger than I am. I distinctly remember having a couple of birthdays, 2 that I can remember, where my sibling also got a present on my birthday, just so that they would feel included, so that they wouldn't throw that tantrum, so that they wouldn't be so violently jealous that this day was about somebody other than them. And I get that. I understand why now. I understand why that is. Because a 3-year-old doesn't understand how the world works. They don't understand that because one person gets something, they should also get something. They don't understand that that's not the way it's supposed to work. So some parents, I would say most parents, probably do anything they can to placate that child along the way. And I'm not sure that's the right way to do things, because then there's an expectation that anytime anybody gets anything, it's not fair if they don't get it too. Even if somebody has worked really, really hard to get something, and maybe that translates all the way into like t-ball. When you're playing t-ball or pee-wee soccer or football or something like that, if another team gets a trophy, there's a certain age where kids don't understand why they're not getting something for what they interpret as doing the same thing. And that's where we started this whole participation trophy thing, where kids felt bad for losing. I'm of the opinion that it's okay to teach a child that losing is an option. Losing is one of the outcomes of doing something competitive. You either win or you don't win. Those who win should get the award. They should get the prize. They should get the trophy. And those who do not win should not. Because I think it's valuable to learn how to lose. I think it's valuable to take what you can from a loss and try harder the next time to perhaps win, or to decide that that's not something that you're good at. That's not something that you want to pursue any longer. And that's okay. We don't all have to be good at everything. In fact, I think that's what makes this world amazing, is that you have some people who are incredible artists, and then you have other people who are incredible with accounting and numbers. You have some people who are amazing at the social aspects of our society, where they can talk to anyone, they can have conversations, they can make deals, they can be in meetings and get things done. And then you have other people who can sit at a computer and use these codes, lines and lines, thousands, millions of lines of code, and they make these amazing programs that everybody else can use. By giving everybody a trophy for everything they try and not showing them that everybody has strengths and weaknesses, I think we're doing a disservice to our children. But I want to go back to the 3-year-old. Because 3-year-olds who get everything they want just so that they won't throw another fit in the middle of the Kohl's or the Walmart, if they're putting something in the cart and the parent says, no, we don't need that, we have that, and the child starts to lose their mind, and instead of that, the parent just says, oh, okay, fine, put it in the cart, we'll get it. You're teaching that child that negative behaviors are effective and they can get whatever they want. And if that person grows up to be an adult and is never told no, well, then they don't understand how the world works. They just think that if they yell loud enough or if they intimidate enough, they're going to get what they want. I think the more intelligent out there understand where I'm going with all of this, because every once in a while, every once in a really long while, one of these people who was never told no is going to find themselves in a position of influence or power, and they're going to do whatever they want. And if they don't get what they want right away, they're going to bite, they're going to hit, they're going to scream, they're going to stomp their feet, figuratively, and they will eventually get what they want. But there's a problem when that person of extreme influence and power starts wanting things that really are going to affect so many others. If we never say no, then we will give up everything, all to make one 3-year-old stop throwing that fit. We're getting closer and closer to a really, really bad situation. And it's because a 3-year-old was never told no. It's because that 3-year-old would get into a lot of trouble, smash things, hurt people, act out. And they were never held accountable for it. They were never punished for it. And that 3-year-old is never going to stop doing those things because they're not getting in trouble. They're not being held responsible. They're not being told no. There's an opinion in business that no doesn't mean no. No just means no, not right now. So the negotiation doesn't end. It just means you have to change tactic. So you decide a different way to approach this situation to get what you want. Some people react to kindness. Some people react to threats. Some people react to pain. And it's interesting that we are now in a time and a place where a whole lot of us are about to feel a whole lot of pain just to keep one 3-year-old from throwing themselves on the floor and screaming and crying in the middle of an aisle of Walmart. So what can we do for that 3-year-old? What can we do to make sure that everybody in the family is safe, that things don't get destroyed and broken because of this 3-year-old's tantrum? I don't know. I hope we figure it out soon, though. I suppose we're going to find out one way or the other pretty soon. I hope that they take away all of his toys so he can't throw them at anyone and hurt anyone. Because that's what's next. He might start throwing toys. And if one of those toys hits somebody, I don't think we're gonna be able to stop the siblings from fighting. And somebody's gonna end up really, really hurt. And I don't want that for any of the people in that family, in our family. I just hope that we can figure out a way. I hope we can figure out a way. I'll see you tomorrow.